Welcome, everyone. If you'd like to now just drop your name in the chat. Feel happy to do that. Your name, your pronoun, what organization you're with, and what you've done so far this summer. So it's a busy time for everyone. Welcome, Eva. And if you're just joining, please make sure you drop in your name, your pronouns, what organization you're working with, and what you've done so far this summer for Pride Month.
Welcome, everyone. As you come in, just introduce yourself on the chat, name, pronouns, organization, affiliation, if you have one. Where are you geographically, and how is your Pride Month going?
Welcome, Kelsey, Julia, Jimmy.
We are at 6:05. If that is okay, we are going to begin. Is that okay, Derek? Or you want to wait a little bit?
Wait a little more. If we had 100 people registered, they're probably just having some time coming in.
Hello for those just joining and coming in. If you'd like to welcome. And if you would like to drop your name, pronouns, organization, geographical region, and how is your Pride Month going, that would be awesome. Ryan says, I've been sharing several resources and stories on pride in agriculture this month, sparking productive conversations on DEI in our ag communities. Mateo making medicine oils, salves, balms, hanging out in the woods, couch surfing to beat the heat. Amy Pulley, enjoying having my girls home from school. Awesome. I'm reading randomly. Been enjoying the expedited planting season, camping, and as of today, enjoying being a first-time landowner. Congratulations, Anthony. Chelsea jumping in lots of water and enjoying the summer warmth. Dr. Udim and Adam, you're publishing a textbook in the Capitol Parade for the first time. And Adam produced over 35 pounds of produce from my 3 production plots. This is awesome work. Okay. I'm gonna mute myself a little bit. Oops, sorry.
We'll wait 2 more minutes, Christina, and then we can start.
We'll do that. Chelsea is doing morning kayaking on a nearby lake. Julia. Tender Heart Gardens in Lansing, Michigan, foraging cherries, black raspberries, and mulberries. Jimmy enjoying the company of sweet friends. So great.
All right, we're gonna get started, 6:10.
Yes, let's do that. And before we have any welcome words, we want to start with a tribal and land acknowledgement. NESOG is on headquartered on the Narragansett territory. The statement was released by the Narragansett tribe representatives and tribal elders that we are accountable to, and so this is the land acknowledgement that we will be sharing today. And this is from the Narragansett tribal members' voices. As a way of introduction, we are here. We are the people who grew from this land. We are the First Nations. We're sovereign tribal nations. We're the people who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. Our ancestors are buried here. We want to take a moment to honor our ancestors who faithfully stewarded our inherent territories, and we want to express our deep gratitude to Mother Earth, who has sustained us throughout all these generations. We are the inherent keepers and protectors of this land from time immemorial for the survival of the next 7 generations. We also want to acknowledge all those who do not have their ancestors buried under this very soil since time immemorial. You are standing on stolen land. You're here living and working on this land as guests. As guests, we respectfully request that you make the commitment or the recommitment to honor Mother Earth, to stop the trampling of the land, to follow the leadership and stewardship of her First Nations, and to respect and uphold Indigenous sovereignty without violation. And with those words from our tribal Narragansett Nation, we wanted to open and welcome this space. So nice to see all of you. I am, well, I will rename myself. It says Nisog. I'm Christina Cabrera. My pronouns are she, her. My traditional name is Chunchip Deer Spirit. I am the executive director of NISOG, Northeast Sustainable Agriculture Working Group. And we are the Northeast network for the farm and food system focused on racial equity transformation of the farm and food system. It is imperative that we center voices of color and that we have an equitable and just farm and food system. Currently, there's only 1.4% of Black farm operators in the entire country. We cover 12 states plus Washington, D.C., from Maine to West Virginia, and from the Atlantic coast to Pennsylvania, and we very much welcome you. And with that, I want to introduce Derek Johnson. Derek is going to be our moderator for the evening, and Derek will introduce all of the speakers and explain to you a little bit more how the roundtable conversation will work. Derek I am going to Derek's bio. Derek's journey from a business professional to an advocate for educational equity and social justice is a testament to his dedication to creating positive change. His academic pursuits and professional experiences reflect a deep commitment to education and community engagement. As a Black pansexual queer man and having a background that spans continents and cultures, Derek brings a unique perspective to discussions on queerness and agriculture, highlighting the intersectionality of identity and the importance of inclusive practices in all sectors. His work with the District of Columbia Public Schools, Collective Liberation Lab, NISOG's Board of Directors, and Spark Teacher Education Institute showcases his proactive approach to addressing systemic and systematic issues, while his involvement in media via the podcast Eat, Puff, Love and Indigo Radio, as well as community gardening, illustrates his multifaceted approach to activism and outreach. Derek's narrative is one of passion, purpose, and the power of embracing one's full identity to effect meaningful, long-lasting change. Welcome, Derek.
Thank you, Christina. Couldn't read that better myself. Good evening, everyone. Once again, my name is Derek Johnson. I'm glad to be here. Happy Pride Month. I'm glad you all decided on a Monday night to come and have a talk and listen and converse. And there will be room for all of that tonight. What I first want to do is I want to go ahead and introduce our guest speakers and re-explain what this roundtable is about. Basically, we were sitting in a room and thought, well, how can we bring out the voices of Black and brown queer farmers during the most celebrated month of the year, Pride? And so that formed this roundtable. And along with myself, there's been a lot of planning, a lot of deep dig into conversation. We've even requested some questions from you that we're going to go over tonight. There will be space at times for your participation via either the chat and then later into some breakout sessions. And with that all said, I'm going to introduce our panelists. And also remember that this event is being recorded. So our first panelist, let me open up my slide. I already had it open. There we go. So our first panelist is Oprah Jarrell Brevich. Oprah works with the department. Sorry, everybody, my apologies. My phone is not staying up like I wanted it to. Here we go. Oprah is the Assistant Director of Michigan State University's Gender and Sexuality Campus Center. We have Joshua D. Allen. He goes by he, his, they, them from Brattleboro, Vermont. Joshua is a soil conservationist, the National Disabilities and LGBTQIA+, a Special Emphasis Program Manager, the USD Civil Rights and Equal Employment Opportunity Division, CREDO. We have Fallon Davis, they go by they, them, from Newark, New Jersey. Fallon is the founder, CEO, president of STEAM Urban. Fallon's a non-binary healer, visionary, urban farmer, radical educator, and also a NESOC board member. And we have Kiana Farrell, goes by Kai, they, and she, from Shutesbury, Massachusetts, is a beekeeper, community herbalist, and earth worker. So thank you all. And Josh, yes, back in Baltimore, right across the street, almost. All right, so we're gonna start here with our first question. And
Just a quick question.
Before we do that, Oprah's gonna come on and we're gonna go across some shared definitions so that we are all on the same page as it relates to the vocabulary we're gonna be using or may come across tonight. So Oprah, I'm gonna give you the floor to do that. And Christina, you're gonna bring up the slides.
Do we do community agreements?
Oh, we did not. Okay, look at me rushing. I just want to get into the conversation. Okay, of course, let's start there. Community agreements. As you know, being in the community, we should have agreements on how we participate and how we discuss. So our community agreements are: be curious, open and respectful, call not out, throw sunshine, not shade. No one knows everything. Together, we know a lot. We take care of ourselves, as we all should. We stretch, we eat, we drink, we use the bathroom, and rest when we need to. Confidentiality. Of course, this is being recorded, and we share that with you, but also don't speak for others without explicit permission, and don't share something communicated in a private or safe space. We will be using the one mic, one voice at a time rule here today. And lastly, take space, make space. Did you see that, okay, Christina? Oprah can't unmute.
Okay, so we'll just show the rest of the agreements. People can look at them. And I'll stop the share. Oprah, you can't unmute. I don't know that I have the ability to unmute you.
Well, let me see if I can go.
Can you click on your microphone?
There Beautiful. Somebody did. Thank you. And since we don't have your slides currently up, I can just share mine.
Okay.
And that way I can control the thingies. Let me make this a separate thing. Thank y'all for bearing with us, you know, being on Zoom for however many years we've been on Zoom. Just trying to make it work. Okay, there's my share button. Share just a window. Yeah, just that one. Okay. So y'all should, ooh, how do I make it so I can see you and also this? I guess I'm not gonna be able to. When I made it big, y'all were able to see it? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to make it big. I won't be able to see you. So somebody has to unmute and talk to me if you want to talk, because
Okay,
it
we
takes up
see
my
you.
whole screen. Okay.
All right.
So just want to go through some words that we might be using as we give some explanations and answer some of these questions. And maybe words that you've seen before, heard before, but haven't actually been given the definition. So here we go. This is one that I see a lot where folks are misunderstanding what it actually means. This is pronounced cisgender. CIS means same. So a cisgender person is an individual whose gender identity aligns with the gender identity that was assumed of them based on their birth assigned sex. So baby comes out into the world, whoever catches that baby usually looks at their genitalia and says, okay, based on the genitalia I'm seeing, this is a girl. So they mark female on paperwork, and then that child grows up, and sure enough, they look in the mirror and they go, girl. That's a cisgender person. And cisgender people receive benefits that trans and non binary people do not receive. Transgender is a gender identity term for an individual whose gender identity does not match or is at some distance from their gender identity that was assumed by their birth assigned sex. So, child comes out in the world, whoever catches the baby looks at the genitalia, says, this is a boy, marks male on paperwork. That baby grows up, looks in the mirror, and says, you know what? Boy doesn't work for me. Boy is not it. There's other words, there's other experiences that I feel in my spirit. Boy is not it. For some folks, transgender and or trans are considered to be umbrella terms, and there's other words that go underneath there. So, since we know cisgender folks have privilege, and we know heterosexual people have privilege, cis heteronormativity is the pervasive system of belief that centers and naturalizes heterosexuality and a binary of the assigned sex or gender. It puts it in two rigid categories: distinct ways of being that are assigned. People are assigned male at birth, they are masculine, they grow up to be men, and people are assigned female at birth, they grow up feminine, and they are women. That's what cis heteronormativity normalizes and says there's just these two things. So if we break apart the cis part and we go cis normativity, then we can see that in gender reveal parties. So he or she, what's the baby gonna be? That is cis normative, and that is saying that trans people don't exist, that non-binary people don't exist. We are just our genitals. We can also see it on applications. So we see gender. These are not gender markers. Female and male are sex markers. But we see under gender, female, male, rather not say. That is cis normativity, assuming that everyone identifies with what they were assigned at birth. We see it in men's multivitamins, women's multivitamins as well. And then we see them in bathrooms often. We see the person wearing a dress is the woman, person who's just straight up and down, probably wearing pants, is a man. And you can also go into pretty much any building in the world and find a women's bathroom or a men's bathroom pretty easily. It's harder to find all gender bathrooms or family bathrooms. And then if we break apart the heteronormativity part, we can see Mr. Steal Your Girl. This is a baby's onesie. So baby comes out into the world, has a penis. Everyone's like, it's a boy. Of course, that boy is going to grow up and be heterosexual. So let's get him this onesie that says, Mr. Steal Your Girl. Or the other one that says, ladies, I have arrived. We also see it with wedding toppers, wedding cake toppers. We see it. We know this image with the dress is the women's image for bathrooms. We know the straight up and down is the men's image for bathroom. And then we see signs like this that say, this is what a family looks like for family-friendly parking. And finally, this image was pulled from a general sex ed course that I found online. But putting two people together, of course, they're going to be boy and girl and all that, is saying that this is normal and the only way to be. cis heteropatriarchy. So now we're talking about the two privileged identities, heterosexual and cisgender. And now we're talking about it in our context on a socio-political system level. So a socio-political system in which cisgender heterosexual men, so they are both cisgender and they are heterosexual, have authority over everyone else. They also get to describe society as being fundamentally based in heterosexism, cissexism, sexism, and male dominance. Here, all actors are presumed to be heterosexual and cisgender and operate in an alignment with strict gender binary roles. Patriarchy is reliant upon ideologies of domination and the exploitation of all things related to feminine, queerness, and transness. So people in power should be men. They should be men that are born men. All that kind of stuff is in the cis heteropatriarchy. And all the other things, all the other genders and sexualities, that's weird stuff that we don't need to deal with. And those people should be at the margins of the conversations. That's what cis heteropatriarchy calls for. And that's what we're living in. Just to further pull some things apart. So sometimes people will use gender and sex interchangeably. And I mentioned a moment ago that under gender, female and male as choices, that female and male are sex markers. They're not gender markers. Gender is a social construct framed by society's understanding of masculinity and femininity as related to roles, behaviors, expectations, activities, identities, and attributes. This term is often understood as a binary, but it is not. However, historically and presently, gender is expansive and dynamic. A key element of an individual's gender is their personal identity, gender attribution, which is how people treat them, and then gender expression, which is how they personally put their gender out into the world. Maybe you wear earrings or dresses or combat boots or camouflage pants, and that like helps you express who you are in the world. And then birth assigned sex. So this is the designation that refers to a person's biological, morphological, hormonal, and genetic composition. So this is what is happening when someone catches the baby, looks at the genitals and goes, oh, these are boy genitals. This is a male. So one's sex is typically assigned at birth and classified as either male or female. Assigned at birth serves to imply that sex assignment is without the agency of the individual. Birth assigned sex is often mistaken and confused with gender. So we also are missing intersex in this conversation. There's 18 different intersex conditions. And so that can show up in genitalia. It can show up in chromosomes on that level. And some people won't even know until later in life when they get some type of genetic testing that they are an intersex person. And so we already know just by intersex folks existing that even sex, male, female, is not on a binary. And then finally, intersectionality. So how all these things come together. Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989 gave us this language. And so far it has been, I don't even know, it has gone out into the world and been destroyed and picked up and changed and all these weird things for years and years and years. But what it is, in its essence, is an interconnected nature of social categories such as race, class, and gender as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. So this is multiple marginalized identities coming together to form a brand new set of oppression. And so these are folks that often are at the margins of the margins. For example, I believe the main story that this understanding came from, intersectionality, is that there was a Black woman who applied for a job. She did not get the job. She sued on the basis of racial discrimination as well as gender discrimination. And she lost the case. And so the reason she lost the case was that the employer was able to prove that they hire Black people and that they hire women. But when you look at all the Black people that the employer hires, they are all Black men. And when you look at all the women that the employer had hired, they were all white women. So there was a special oppression happening there where this person wasn't seen as, you know, a Black man and wasn't a white woman. So she wasn't hired for the job that she should have had. Intersectionality looks at the interlocking systems of oppression and how these play out in individual lives. So what can happen is, sorry, my dog is sitting behind me. So what can happen is we can say for Pride Month this month, we can say, oh, let's have a Pride event, and let's have it in a building with no elevator, because everyone can walk up the stairs, right? So then you have a person who is LGBTQ, who wants to celebrate Pride, who wants to go out and be visible and be in community, but they use a wheelchair. And so now they can't access a building, and they can't access an event that is meant for them. So these are folks, margins of the margins. Oh, those are my slides. So as we move into the roundtable discussion, things to consider. How is cis normativity showing up in the work that you do, in the language that you use? How is heteronormativity showing up in the language that you use, and in the spaces that you're creating? And also, what are some of those intersecting identities that you can see making folks way less visible than other folks? And I'll turn it over to Derek.
Thank you, Oprah. Thank you for sharing those in detailed definitions, because we always need that when we're conversing, to have a mutual understanding. And the first question does come back to you. And as I said to our panelists, we will give the person an opportunity to answer the question. And then if you want to add into that question, feel free to come off mute and do so. So we know that our liberation and visibility is very important. It matters, and queer farmers of color often face invisibility and erasure. So a liberation involves dismantling those type of oppressive norms and celebrating the diverse identities that we bring. So what role do you believe visibility plays in dismantling stereotypes and promoting liberation in the farm and food system?
Ooh. A big role, a huge role. There's the representation matters moment that we're having in the media, where we have Viola Davis, who is this powerhouse of an actress, say the opportunities don't exist. People are shutting the door before they even consider opening the door. And so I think we can take those lessons that she's given us and put them in any industry like agriculture. And we can say that when folks are creating spaces, when they are creating grants, when they are thinking about who to serve in the community, that they have to think broader and they have to think specifically at the same time. Who are you leaving out? Who is not at the table? And I don't even like saying things about the table, because I don't really like eating at the table. What if I want to stand up while I eat my food or have my meeting? What if I want to sit in a hammock? Like, the fact that a table has already been built means that there's already a system at play, right? You have to sit at the table a certain way in a certain chair, and that sort of thing. So I even push back on the table concept, but it's important to name who is missing, instead of just saying, well, I hope that Black people come. I hope that Latinx farmers come. I hope Asian farmers come. Maybe they'll show up, maybe they won't. Call them out, seek them out, and invite them personally to the spaces that you're creating, instead of waiting for people to show up. So I think visibility can go both ways. I think we can put ourselves out there, and I think folks who are creating spaces can seek out those folks too. And that's one of the important things about commemorative days, commemorative months, like Pride Month, Black History Month, Latinx Heritage Month, all that, because we are here and we've always been here. And we will continue to be here. And some of the folks in power and with their privilege kind of move through a different world than the rest of us, and they will pretend like we don't exist. And so it's important for us to take up space, to have our commemorative months and our commemorative weeks, and to be loud about it, because we've always been here and we've always been deserving and worthy.
Thank you. I love that idea of pushing the table away and just coming with something new. Never sat into that would be like, oh yeah, the table's already been built. So that goes along with how we have to conduct ourselves. Thank you. Anybody else want to share in from that, from our panel? Add on to, build on to? I'm gonna take that as a no. Okay, so moving along. All right, so the next question is for our panelist, Josh. So Josh, this is gonna be talking about partnership. We know you're with the USDA, but partnership beyond the USDA. While the USDA provides support, alternative partnerships, diversifying funding sources, and expanding networks, we don't always have to rely solely on the government channels, which can sometimes limit our options. So what alternative partnerships or collaborations can help us as queer farmers of color, earth workers, to diversify funding and support, and or any organizations that are non-traditional that you may want to speak about, that you've come in contact with?
Got you. So first and foremost, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to be able to share some resources and relay some of this information to the crowd. So in the position that I'm currently in, I appreciate the fact that I get a chance to do things like this, because I've worked with the Natural Resources Conservation Service with USDA for quite a while. So having the opportunity to work side by side with farmers, with technical service providers, with biologists, archaeologists, all kinds of technical folks to address some of these natural resource concerns and help farmers at least find a path that works for them to address them and help mitigate them. So when it comes to there we go. When it comes to partnerships, I would say before anything, there's 3 points that I want to kind of hit on first, and then I'll go into some different folks that I've worked with, as well as just some general partners that folks within the nation can work with, what they should have within their state. So I would say first things first is know where to search. If you are looking for, farm loan support, if you are looking for a land access, if you're looking for actual natural resource support and technical support, knowing which agencies to go to. And I am definitely a proponent of using a Google search. So if putting in, a specific agency, if you've worked with them or not, or, a keyword like conservation and USDA, tied back to USDA. And I would say 9.8, if not 9.9 times out of 10, you'll be redirected to a site that'll kind of lead you on the path that you're looking for. So first things first is knowing where to search. And if anyone ever needs additional guidance, please feel free to give me a buzz and I can kind of give you some links and you can go on from there to get what you need. But second would be knowing the lingo. So one thing I think that we do a little bit too often, I feel like at times within the USDA, is talking acronyms. So you'll hear like EQIP and CSP and AMA and all these different things, and nobody knows what's going on. And I feel like a lot of the information gets missed because folks are focusing on what things mean as opposed to what they can get out of that particular program or particular resource, or whatever the case may be. So understanding what things mean. EQIP is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. CSP is the Conservation Stewardship Program. And my last point kind of leads into this, is asking those questions. If you are in a space where you feel like you don't know, reach out to your local service centers, reaching out to, your soil water conservation districts, to University Extension, all these folks who collaborate and work with USDA, especially if you're finding it difficult to reach folks in the offices. And I understand every state works different, every person works different. And times of the year, work can be a bit variant. So I would imagine this time of year, folks are kind of running around like chickens with their head cut off because they're out in the field working with farmers, trying to get things done, get plans together, contracting. It's a whole thing, right? But there are other folks that USDA works with who knows the process, who can help at least provide some initial guidance. And then once you actually make that time or have that time to converse with your local service centers, a bit more defined as far as what questions you want to ask, because you have an idea of what the end result, what you want it to look like. So kind of going into those partners, again, I'll say the soil water conservation districts. I would say most states, if not all states, have some type of conservation district in these counties who work side by side or at least collaborate with USDA on some type of project. So that would be a good place to start. I understand that some districts are a bit more active than others, but there should be some type of district there, and they have worked with or have some type of tie to USDA. Same thing with university extension folks, because they are doing some of that technical research. They have farming plots, they have, you know, workers who come, they actually doing some of the grassroots work. They could certainly be a point of contact for individuals, whether it be from a technical lens or, you know, asking questions of, well, have you worked with this agency? Have you worked, you know, with this particular group? Can you provide me some guidance or some information? And collaborating like that, I would say plays a really big role in making sure that the community survives. Nobody can survive unless we are exchanging information and being fluid with our information exchange. And that's a part of the conversation today, right? Making sure that everybody knows what we need to know so we can make more informed decisions. Okay. And don't mind me, I'm a character. Some additional folks outside of just the norm, the university extensions and the soil water conservation districts. So thinking about folks like the Cultivating Change Foundation, thinking about Out and Equal, thinking about, you know, specific farms like the Rocksteady Farm in New York or the Oprah Project, you know, all these different organizations who have, I would imagine in some way, form or fashion, worked with USDA. And they could essentially be, if not a mentor, some type of guiding light as well. Especially if folks have had interesting, I won't paint a picture, but interesting experiences working with USDA, and may feel, you know, that they weren't heard before or the process wasn't the best carried out. So being able to collaborate with other folks, so that's why I say you can make more informed decisions once you go back into those spaces, if you feel more comfortable going back into those spaces, and you can get out of it what you need. Two more things, and I'll wrap it up. So I would lead into anybody who is within a specific state, or if you're working with USDA currently, specifically the Natural Resources Conservation Service, I would recommend connecting with the state's outreach coordinator. So and I have been in this position as well, and outreach coordinators, I would say, are very transformative for the agency, specifically because your outreach coordinators are your point of contacts to those marginalized groups to ensure that if, you know, you're getting information to, you know, NAACP, getting information to, you know, BIPOC spaces, queer spaces, Hispanic spaces, veteran spaces, disabled spaces, all these different groups who have not historically benefited from these resources, this information, and making sure they actually have a space at the table. And I agree with this. I agree with the sentiment that was made earlier that what if I don't want to stand up to eat? What if I don't want to, you know, do these things? I feel like you can always have room for improvement. Maybe we need to add some wheels to the table. Maybe we need to add a little fan because it's hot. Maybe because, you know, it's different augmentations that we can take to make sure that people get what they need. And on top of that, providing folks with not just a space to share their voice, but with a microphone to be able to amplify their voices so other people can hear some of these struggles and maybe impart their own, you know, experiences or provide their own, you know, level of guidance or whatever the case may be. So then it goes back into that communication piece of making sure that folks can exchange so we can all know and do better because we know better. And then lastly, these would be folks that I work with specifically now in my role would be the special emphasis program managers. So the FPAC mission area, the Farm Production and Conservation mission area, which includes the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the Farm Service Agency, the Risk Management Agency, and the Federal Business Center, has special emphasis programs, 8 special emphasis programs. So we're talking federal women's, we're talking Black, Hispanic, LGBTQI+, disability, veterans, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and Native Americans. Yes. And essentially the focus is on employment, but I will say these individuals can also serve as a point of contact especially when it comes to creating a safe space. So folks may be able to share some of the hindrances or speed bumps that they've been going through. And that individual could serve as, a mentor or a guide or even a segue for the individual to be able to talk to specific people that they need information from. So once again, if anyone needs some of this information or just where to start looking, feel free to let me know and I can put my information in the chat. But using any of these resources can at least provide people proper footing. And then once you feel comfortable, I'm all about folks feeling comfortable, you take that step because you know that first step that you're taking with confidence. And I will leave it there.
Thank you, Joshua. So my key takeaway from that for sure is talk to the boots on the ground, and as people on the ground, make sure we are sharing information. There's enough information out here that we can share and not hold or hoard for ourselves, because really that's how we grow, right? The more we know, the more we cannot be used against each other. So for sure, thank you for sharing that. Anybody else from the panel would you like to share in quickly before we move on to our next topic?
There's a quick question in the chat. What organization houses the state outreach coordinator that is good to go to?
So I'm actually replying in the chat. But I would say the Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS, as well as the Farm Service Agency has outreach coordinators now. So either one of those two agencies would be a good place to start.
Both would be under USDA.
Correct.
All right. So we're going to keep on moving along. I hope that was, everybody has their pins out because there's a lot of information being shared. And as you said, there will be things shared out in the chat as well as being sent out at the end. You'll be able to see our panelists' contact information. So the next question is for Fallon. Hey, glad to see your face. So Fallon, urban farming occurs in cities and suburbs. It's a powerful tool for community empowerment, food security, and sustainable practices. And yet we know it also comes with its challenges. But how can the urban agriculture contribute to queer community resilience and food sovereignty? How can we make it happen in the city? Oh, and let me unmute you. I got to do the unmuting. Sorry about that.
Okay. Hello. Good to see your face as well. Really good question. So, I think that being queer in urban agriculture, and then being Black or brown and queer in agriculture has its very unique challenges. With the kind of informal foundation that urban agriculture has right now, we have a lot of control and power in the way that it can look like in moving forward within our communities. Because in order for us in our urban areas to really have food sovereignty, we have to disrupt the food system. We have to decide who the producers are, how our food's growing, where the seeds are coming from, how that food's getting distributed. And because it's been so left out, the same way our queerness has, our Blackness has, us coming together like myself and creating an organization like Steam Urban, where as a queer Black person is the face of it, I'm able to use in my position the ability to hire other Black and brown queer folks who are able to be in urban agriculture, who are able to teach our communities the ways that we want to teach it. We're able to be more equitable around how we are looking at power analysis, and we are holding space for folks. So we are able to think about gender expansiveness when we're thinking about our abilities. We're able to include intersectionality for folks who have been through different bouts of trauma that might deal with ailments that are not as physical, but we can control kind of what that schedule looks like, what our day looks like, even supports within an urban space, like how high the beds are or our pathways, are they accessible? But because we are in such a unique position where we kind of have to bring everything in, where like we're really like going into this abandoned lot, this, you know, space no one wants, and having to like rebuild it and bring in our soil, bring in our talents, bring in our folks. We can really use our skills, we can really use our need for community, and we can really use our wisdom around being unoppressive to create new spaces in these urban agriculture environments that are liberating for queer folks, that make you feel like you want to be there, that allow you to learn and grow, right? Because urban agriculture should be accessible to everyone. And we all know that the history of queer agriculture and Two-Spirit Indigenous has always been that queer folks had a hand in the land. And so when we can understand culturally that and get back to our roots, even within our Blackness, that it's just a transformative experience. And it's really changed the communities that I'm in, the communities that I'm impacted by, because we really can look around our space and say, wow, I'm proud of every one of us that are in this space because we chose each other. We chose to be here. We chose to stand up against the fight, and we chose to create our own food system.
Thank you. I like that. Our queer hands have always been in the earth.
Okay.
Always been in the earth.
So we can share that history, okay?
Yes. You can't go nowhere if you don't know where you came from.
Oh.
You know? Thank you. So we're gonna move over unless someone else wants to share in before we move over. Nobody wants to talk tonight. What is happening? Okay. Kayana. Yes, thank you for reminding me I need to unmute you. There we go. We good now? Yes.
I was gonna add in, yeah, that I started off in urban agriculture too, and do think that that's just like such an accessible modality. I really respect people who like rep it hard and continue on in that. And yeah, thanks for that work, Fallon.
Absolutely. So shout out to all the urban agriculturalists here in the group. Throw a heart up, throw a fist up. All right. So Kayana, we're going to move over to ancestral knowledge and life ways. So the context is ancestral wisdom holds valuable insight for sustainable agriculture. Integrating traditions and practices with modern techniques can strengthen our connection to the land. As Fallon said, queer hands always been in the earth. So how can we as Black and brown queer farmers and earth workers honor and integrate our ancestral wisdom into our modern agricultural practices? Because we know you do a lot around just ways of being bees, doula, etc. So yes.
Yeah, I love this. I feel like I have so many notes written down, so I'm gonna see how much talk about a little, maybe do some more in the breakout groups after. But I feel like there's like two big questions about really how can we as like queer people connect to ancestral ways or feel connected to that, and also how can we as like Black and brown people bring our ancestral practices onto the land that we're on right now, because so much of us are not on our ancestral lands or not currently tending those ancestral lands. But being able to incorporate honestly the techniques that started like this continent or this country, this, you know, current agriculture system that we have today started on brown and Black technique and labor. So that's like foundational in the agriculture system in my mind, as much as they don't like to acknowledge that at times. And they were practicing nature-based religion. So it was never separate, your farm practices from your religious practices. They were incorporating the same mediums. You were working with the earth and everything. And that was like a full way of relating our bodies and selves to the land. So that's just like a foundational thing. I personally practice like different hoodoo techniques and different ephod techniques, and then have learned with some different Indigenous teachers from around the world that I have permission of like continuing on a lot of their teachings. And I really try to hammer down that we all have ancestral land ways that we can learn about, whether that's through like, whether you have bloodlines who remember and you can contact them and have access to them. And for queer people, sometimes we're estranged from our families, and it's really hard to try to like cross this familial line of wanting to really have access to this ancestral knowledge, but also not being accepted or feeling comfortable enough to be that intimate with your family. So in those cases, I really love practices like hoodoo, where it is about what you have access to and really grounding into the knowledge that you can access and not holding it against you that you have lost all of this stuff. You can build that and remember that through actually somatically going through these rituals on the land and listening, letting your body and like the voices of your ancestors guide you. So let me look at my notes. Yeah, so like, you know, really basic things that I offer to people that I think can start building this connection are like giving offerings to the land and the spirits of the land, talking to them, giving food to them, asking them questions before you're making big decisions on the land, or if your ancestral life ways or like spiritual connection has like divination as a tool, this is like a great time to bring divination into it and trying to see what answers you can divine and let that be incorporated and like, you know, a really loud voice in the room when it comes to making the decisions of what's happening on the land, and honoring what those voices or what that divination is telling you. And a lot of the like, I have been trained by some Mexica elders or the people that have come from Mexico from a couple of different lineages, and they have a lot of rituals. This also translates into a lot of people in just the southwest of Turtle Island and some of the northwest region, but opening and closing rituals around like seasonal times of the year can feel really nice and good if you're like starting your farm season and you want to, before you're starting to plow the land or tend seeds, you tell the land, you go to it, you can do what you feel called to do. There's so many different protocols around it. And then also having that same closing of it where you're giving thanks, you're a lot of times, you know, offering a cornucopia of the harvest back to the land or to the ancestors and spirits of the land. And I really, yeah, you know, I've had such beautiful ceremonies around that. And even as simple as putting out a plate of like whatever harvest you're making at the end of the season can really feel like a moment of sharing gratitude with all of the little creatures and spirits that have like come to support in making those a reality, those harvests. Looking at my notes. I think like book resources, a lot of people use Farming While Black. If that's not in your repertoire, I really recommend it. Also, Jambalaya by Louisa Teach, I'm pretty sure is how her name is pronounced. That's also a really amazing book that talks about more hoodoo traditions around working with the land and just being a natural person in relationship with the land. And going to powwows, if you're not like already connected to your local Indigenous community, especially if you're literally tending their land, like that should be a foundational. Braiding Sweetgrass, yeah, thank you, Michael, is a really beautiful book by Robin Kimmerer, something along those lines. Yeah, if you can't find local powwows too, like there are some bigger regional ones that I'm pretty sure are Googleable. Like New York City has an Indigenous Peoples Day powwow that it's really cool, and a lot of people from all over the world come. So that is yeah, it's hard to respect the ancestral ways of the land without acknowledging like harms that have been caused on that land and trying to be accountable to that, even if it's not our lineages that cause those harms. Like we are still benefiting in some way by being on that land. So giving that acknowledgement is really important. Yeah, and talking about grants, I'm not a farm director at the moment. I'm a doula full time, but I felt like the most successful in my farm career when I was really like pushing the boundary about what we could get funding for in terms of like our spiritual relationship with the land. Like that's not explicitly covered in these big funding, but when you have really strategic grant writers who can use language in ways that really conveys the importance of the spiritual connection or the practices and rituals that are happening, or like, you know, we need to fly these elders out from Mexico to perform this ritual because we have community that follows these practices and this would really mean so much more to them. So finding the ways to get that resources also feels really successful, and also I think are like modern ways that we can start really claiming this ancestral knowledge that again is like foundational in our agriculture system as what it is and how we can give it reverence. So I could go on, but I'll stop there.
Thank you. No, we appreciate it because we do have to consider that part of ourselves. You know, we're always standing on top of somebody else. And if you're not speaking to your ancestors every day, you should be. That's just my opinion. So we did get a question. We got tons of questions from our audience members. And so I'm just gonna throw one out here really quickly because I think this is very fitting for this time of the month. The question reads, how does a BIPOC queer land worker navigate green spaces authentically with elders who may come from a generation that doesn't understand/respect pronouns or openly gay energy, especially when we look to those elders to learn from them? Anybody want to take a swing at that one? Talk about maybe what you've done.
I can start it off. Yeah, I can start off, Fallon. I don't know if you want to add anything, but I have definitely been in spaces with elders that don't respect that, and I feel like we shouldn't have to stand for that. And also there's only so much the extent of the relationship really has to go to. Like if we're in this for like a teacher and apprenticeship and I feel disrespected in that relationship, as I have in a lot of like subordinate positions regardless, you know, if it's for the next 48 hours and I don't have to see this person, but I really gain this knowledge, like that's how I try to ground into it. I don't know, maybe I have heavy Pisces placements, so I can find comfort in disassociation. Not everyone like has that. So yeah, please, anyone else add in?
So I can chime in, and I believe Fallon, just need to be unmuted because I feel like they're ready as well. So I would say, of course, you have to have an element of respect. Generational gaps are gonna happen, and the way folks did things back in the day worked for them, and it may not work in 2024 and going on. But knowing that, it is imperative, if this elder wants to see this land succeed and see this land thrive, there's going to have to be some type of push and pull. And as well as this younger individual needing to get this information, is having the, I guess, foresight, especially if you know you're going into like a dicey situation, just having the mindset of, let me just absorb what I can. There's always going to be some type of silver lining from interactions that we have with individuals, whether it's negative and it's like, I'm not doing that, or it's positive and it's like, well, how do we essentially commercialize this so that other people can benefit from it? So of course it's having that mutual respect. But I'd also say when it comes to folks that don't respect pronouns, is trying to paint a picture for them that they can make more sense of it. So usually whenever I'm coming across folks who have issues with pronouns, I would say, well, my name is Josh. and you call me Josh, right? So if I tell you my pronouns are he, his, they, them, it's he, his, they, them. Essentially, my pronouns are akin to be saying my name. You say my name incorrectly, then I will correct you. So we go forward. So you know how to address me. I know how to address you. So I feel like whenever you can break things down for folks to be able to digest, excuse me, that may create a bit more room for a more cohesive working space or exchange space. And I understand everything is different, everybody is different, but that could help at least start to bridge some of that gap.
Anyone else?
Want to add, I think that both those perspectives are extremely viable. I would like to challenge a little bit. I am a little more radical in these spaces. I come into certain spaces and times to shake things up and hold folks accountable. And as someone who didn't see the mentorship that I needed in my family, in my community, it's been very imperative that in my journey as a mentor, as someone who folks look up to, that I'm able to be the example that and the lead and the change I want to see in the world. And so unfortunately, sometimes we have to not deal with certain folks who are going to continue to cause harm to us. These elders also deserve to be held accountable in a way of, if you think that my viability and my identity doesn't matter, then how is your knowledge going to be beneficial to me? And so I think that you can hold both things at once, but I also think that people who are harming you and hurting you continues a toxic cycle that has hurt us as queer Black folks for years, centuries. And we have to also think about, who are these mentors we are calling mentors? Who are these elders we are putting on a pedestal? Because if they are causing harm, they are continuing a cycle that we're trying to break. And this is why it's so imperative that we create our own sovereignty and that we have spaces that we really feel good in, and we be the elders that we want, because sometimes we have to leave them behind and move forward if they are going to continue to cause harm. Because I will not allow people to keep causing me harm and learning from them and giving them that level of respect. It's just not going to work for my safety. It's not going to work for my humanity and my being, because there are people who will respect it and value it. There's people who you'll be like, oh, that's not my pronoun. And they're like, oh, beautiful. I love you for who you are. So I'd say find the beautiful balance. Just because someone is an elder, just because someone is an older person doesn't make them an elder. I believe that eldership is earned. It is an honor to be an elder, and toxic older people may not be your elder that you want to go to. And that I'll leave that with that.
Touche.
Oh, absolutely. Excuse me. I just remember this one instance. I was having a conversation with someone, and it was like a response, and this was an older woman, and I'm trying to have this conversation, but then at one point I was just like, listen, if we're going to continue to have this conversation, we got to tone check each other. Like, it just has to happen. Because you're right, we don't self-doubt ourselves. All right.
I was thinking of, I was waiting to see if everybody said what I was thinking. And so I was waiting to try to see if there was something that nobody said so I could add to what was saying. And the thing that's bouncing in my head is remind them of nature. Remind them that we are a part of nature, that we're not meant to like lord over it, or we're not special, that we are all connected to the tree, to the grass, to the bird, that there are excuse me, that there are fish who can change their genitalia based on the context that they're in, that excuse me, that there are men penguins that are raising children together, that all these different things and variations and gender identities and coupling makeups and birds and in fish and all that, if that exists there, it exists also in humans.
Mhm.
And so if we can honor that variety exists out there, how can we be so closed-minded and attacked by the idea that variation exists within ourselves, within the humans? Additionally, this is just for the world and because it helps me not give up on older people in my life. I got to speak, or I got to be in the same room as Dr. Angela Davis. And so she was answering questions, and one of my students actually got to ask her a question around queer and trans liberation connected to racial identity, liberation. And within her answer, she said, "I'm glad that we didn't win what we thought we wanted back then, because we would have left so many people behind." So Angela Davis, who has had her life threatened countless times, has spent time in prison, said that all that, I'm glad we didn't get what we thought we wanted. Even though I was suffering, even though we were struggling, because there were people that we hadn't considered yet. There were people who needed to be in the room, whose experiences needed to be elevated, that we hadn't touched on yet. And so I'm glad we didn't get what we wanted, because we needed to get to this point where people have they, them, theirs pronouns, where people have no pronouns, where people are fluid in their identity and maybe their pronouns change on a daily, weekly basis. Everybody matters. Everybody needs to be able to have their needs met and to be visible, as we were talking about earlier. So that sits with me. And so I'm giving it to you so we can sit with you.
Thank you. Another question from our audience. I love podcasts. Check mine out, Eat Puff Love. Season 3 is coming soon. But what books and podcasts do you recommend for empowerment and knowledge around BIPOC farming and homesteading? Do we have any favorite followers, anyone we're listening to, books that we're reading that we might want to share with the audience? There we go. Black Food Matters.
I'll put a plug in for a colleague and friend of mine. So she does a podcast called The Ag Way with Felixia J. So essentially it is providing new farmers, specifically non-traditional farmers. So folks who are growing on their patios, growing on their porches, growing, just to like either feed their families or get a sense of what it feels to work with Mother Earth, and providing, different climate specific seeds that they could be planting, maybe some different fertilization methods they can be taking, some different types of DIY irrigation, just ways that people can provide for themselves and not feel like they have to go out and go get it from somebody else. They can have some type of their own infrastructure. And as they decide to grow, then they can start to ask for what they need, but they can have, whatever they need to access within themselves. So plug out to The Ag Way with Felixia J. Great podcast.
Freedom Farmers. My eyes aren't that good. Are you muted? Sorry, let me try to unmute you again. Sorry about that. Fallon. How about now, Fallon?
Freedom Farmers by Monica White. I mean, when I tell you that is like my biblical text right now, when I am in the journey of cooperative, of understanding and learning my history and where we've come from. It goes through all the greats and talks about Detroit, the movement in Detroit. Big ups to Detroit. It talks about the beautiful things that these cooperatives did, Fannie Lou Hamer and all the folks. And it talks about where they went wrong and how we can also think about and learn from them and then build on that. So if you're in this work and that is not a book you've read, I highly suggest that you are able to take a look at that. I have two more, but I have to step away really quick.
Kayana, anything on your reading list
yeah,
or
I was looking
podcast?
at some a podcast, I think it's called Little Juju Podcast with Juju Bay. A great podcast. She talks about a lot of different stuff in general, spiritual practices and her relationship to them. I'm looking through my Instagram. Oh, Sweet Freedom Farm. That's a great farm that you could follow, like Soul Fire, another regional Black farm. Working the Root. That's a great book. Oh, I wonder. I should go look on my bookshelf to get the author if we can't find it.
Okay.
I'll get more in the chat, some like Instagrams and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. And Fallon threw up a couple of books, but we're being asked if you all could just drop those things inside the chat. And people in the audience, if you also have some podcast, book, or someone you're socially following that would be great to share, please drop that in the chat. You can do that. And then I'm going to queue up my next question. And this one has to do also from an audience member, someone who's attending tonight, and it has to do with just our overall mental health. We know that the world we live in, mental health awareness is a major thing. And I'm glad it's something that we're all really trying to focus in on to, in whichever ways we choose to do. But we're just wondering, what are your self-care? How do you find self-care when something's not working, or something didn't take in the land, or something came through and ate up everything that you just planted? Like, how are we self-caring these days? Why can't I not keep you unmuted? Oh, it's too much. Hold on. There we go.
Yeah, I think that's funny. It causes space and grace and patience. So that's one of the things. I have a lot of space, grace, and patience for myself, and that allows me to have that for others. I go to therapy once a week on Friday evenings after I close out my week. I talk to my therapist. I also spend time in nature. I went on a solo hike for the first time. I just spent 2 weeks in upstate New York, actually at Rocksteady Farm for their pollinate program, which I'm just plugging that, which provides queer farmers, and they are really centering BIPOC folks the opportunity to learn and grow. But I went on a solo hike to the waterfall, and just being in good community with folks like you all, spending time with my partner, and then also being in liberated spaces where, I don't have to like be misgendered or have to keep correcting people. Like I need a balance. I need a balance of being in spaces where I know I'm going to have to hold space for that, but then also being able to be in spaces where folks just get it. And it's like, like, wow, like you just, like you said family, you said friends, you like, you looked at me and my humanity, and that just builds me up. But yeah, that's kind of the self-care that I'm doing these days. I'm living a very gentle life. So, getting a lot of rest. That's how I'm doing it.
Thank you, Helen.
Yeah, I second that. I really prioritize rest in my farm and like community herbalism work. If my cup isn't overfull, like filling, then I can't give any water to anyone else. So always trying to do that and finding the ways that feel the best for me, like cooking good meals, going swimming in rivers, I love all of that. Smoking weed really hold it down at the end of a farm day sometimes, things like that. So
Thank you, Mother Earth. Thank you, Earth. Josh or Oprah, would you like to chime in?
Sure. So I would say for me, of course, rest I would say is important. I love my 4-hour naps on the weekend. Um, but I would also say I am very much an artist, and I did put this in the chat. But if folks are looking for some Black ag music, and that is definitely one way that I try to get some of my creativity. I see some faces, yeah. So it's songs about like the water cycle, songs about the love between a plant and compost, about climate change. There's a song on there on our project. It's called Soil Food, about sustainability, and it's essentially giving praise to our ancestors as well as like our grandparents who have played that integral role and have nurtured us and showed us the way, and helping to encourage this current generation as well as the generations behind us the importance of having some type of stake in agriculture, because if we can feed ourselves, we can sustain ourselves, we ain't got to depend on nobody else. Okay, so I would, if you're interested, and we would certainly appreciate it, just check out our album. It's called Soil Food Volume 1. We're working on Volume 2 right now. But artistry is definitely something I cling to. I do have plants all around my house as well. And I'm trying to listen to Felixia J on her podcast to maybe grow some potatoes out there, some peppers, just something that I know I'm going to eat and will save me some money. And I feel like I am contributing not only to myself, because I would imagine I'm going to have excess, I can give to some of my community members as well. So that would be for me, being able to serve my community as well as replenish my soul with some good music, maybe some painting, some photography, whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. Okay, come on, ag music. Learn something new every day. Every
It's an
day.
untouched genre. We're trying to capitalize on it.
Did not know that. Okay. Go ahead with yourself.
The question is just around mental health. Like, what do we do? I like to daydream.
How you self-care?
Yeah, I like to daydream. So I like to think about the future. Yeah, and then I think about the future, how I want to feel in it, and then I try to like work my way backwards to then start creating that feeling now, so that I'm ready for it, so that I'm like cultivating it. I'm not just like waiting for it to happen to me, but I'm like working towards that peace, that love, that connection that I'm seeking in my daydreams. And that feels good.
It sounds good. Especially if you can keep bringing yourself back to that dream. My mind is always like, so I have to say thinking, okay, that's just a thought, bring it back over to here. Well, I'll just share, nobody asked me, but I enjoy being out in nature. In nature for sure, and especially being in my natural state in nature. I think it's always so replenishing to feel the sun and the water on your skin, on your whole self. So it's 7:24, and I know we are going to transition this conversation over into breakout groups because we want to give people here the time to chat amongst themselves, to discuss whatever has come up with the panel, just to be able to connect in a way that you don't always get to do online. So yes, it's breakout rooms, but it's not a heavy lift. There will be some topics for discussion. If you want to roll with those topics and discuss them, feel free, join your breakout group based off the title. If you just want to connect and have a conversation, we are going to have that space for you to do that as well. The rooms are going to stay open till about 7:45. And at 7:45, we'll bring ourselves back together again, where we'll do our closeout and just do our thank yous. Okay, Christina, are we ready for that? Just give Christina some time.
Yes, please give me some time.
So take care of yourself. I'm going to throw that music back on. And you will surely be able to see soon to be able to pick your breakout group. Come on, where are you at, music? There we go. This is Black House Radio. Really another awesome podcast, very queer forward. And this was from their summer solstice set. So check them out on IG, on YouTube. And I have no affiliation, but I love the music.
So we have 9 rooms with actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to reduce them a little bit. That's okay. So you should have you should have about 3 to 4 people in each room, and you're gonna have 20 minutes to talk. And there is we're going to drop a the link on the chat. We're going to drop the link of the slide deck, where we're going to ask you, there's different topics that were discussed today by the speakers. There are a few more like land access, capital access, immigration, a few more that came up in the preparation of this roundtable discussion that were not addressed today. And then at the very end of that slide deck, you will see all the questions that we received via email from the different participants in preparation again for this session. And so in your groups, feel free to decide what you'd like to focus on. And please type in some highlights of your conversation. This portion will not be recorded in your small rooms. And we'll see you back at what time, Eric?
7:45.
Okay, so now I have to give you 15 minutes then. Okay. So any questions? There are no, please click on the link so that you have the slide presentation open so that you can type in on with your group. If you could add the names of your group members on the slide that you choose, and we'll open the rooms. I think this included speakers as well, so Derek, I'm staying here in the main room. If you want to stay here or peruse, go ahead.
Sure.
If you jump into one of those rooms, can you look? Yes, there should be a timer.
Yeah,
Yes, I can.
yeah, oh, you
Yeah.
can see it. I'm trying to find
Yeah.
what it looks like for me. Maybe I need to go under more. Oh, here we go.
Can you go? Yeah. Hi,
I see it.
Nzinga. How are you? Is Derek the only one having the authority, the ability to unmute? Why are people not able to unmute? I don't understand that. Okay, and Zinga, would you be able to type on the chat, because I don't know why? Maybe trying to see that this, we never had this happen before, where people ended up muted. I'm wondering if people are able to chat in their small groups. And Zinga, can you hear me? And if you can, would you be able to type in the chat? I apologize. I'm not sure why it's not letting us, not letting me, not even me unmute. Huh. Makes no sense. Okay, can you unmute yourself now? You should have the ability to unmute. Oh, why is it? No, it's not. Allow participants to unmute. Yeah. Okay, and Zinga, are you there? Maybe you stepped away. That's maybe what happened. Okay, this and Zinga is maybe not hearing me. Maybe she stepped out and she's not in a breakout room. And then with this whole getting the breakout rooms to be random, it seems that the speakers, there's a couple of rooms where the speakers were put together, unfortunately. It would have been great for the speakers to be dispersed a little bit. I could have done that manually. It's just that I didn't have a whole lot of time to check each room and who was in each room.
Yeah, I don't
So-
think that a lot of people went into breakout rooms. I've gone into a few of them, and unless you're still adding them, there are a few people in each room. But we were at 25 participants, and I don't know that we have 25 people in breakout rooms.
Well, I see, can you click on the breakout room and you can see who's there? You can see the green dot.
I just have, it just says join room 1 through 6, and I just went there. I can't see who's in them.
You can't? Oh. Why?
Unless
okay.
I'm doing something incorrect.
Let me, let's see if I can share screen.
But I know people are utilizing the topics, because I just left one room and they said they were going to utilize the topic.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
See, these are the people in the rooms.
Oh, oh, you mean like on the slide? Okay.
Well, no. Can
I
you
just
see
the slide right now.
You see the slide, you don't see my screen?
No, I see your
My,
screen, but it just says land access and land rematriation, and I see circles on like each slide.
oh, no, okay, so you're not seeing okay, I'm gonna take a picture.
Oh,
Because I did a screen share, okay, so I'll do, the slides are in the background, but in the foreground, I have the breakout rooms. And so I'm gonna send them to you via WhatsApp. And so, okay, let's see. Gallery. Okay, camera, share. And I think I fixed the problem that we were having, Derek, with people getting muted.
mm-hmm.
Never had before. I don't know if Zoom changed policies, but we never had before, and I was able to go into, okay, so do you see
Oh, I
your,
see. Yes.
look at your WhatsApp? And so it got them together randomly, but Fallon and Josh are together in the room one, which
Yeah.
makes no. And then look at room 5 is Kayana and Oprah, 2 of the speakers. So frustrating, but it's just I didn't check how the randomness worked,
Mm.
and yeah. Okay, and Zinga, who was the last one, joined a room 4. I mean, I can redistribute them, but it's
I think it's fine because I think people are having fruitful conversations, and I know that.
yeah, I don't want to
Yeah.
alter.
Yeah.
And some people are already, well, at least slide 4 is being filled out, and I can broadcast a message and ask people to start typing their bullet points or their highlights.
Okay. I'm just gonna come off. I'm gonna use the restroom really quickly.
Hey, we need more time. I was hoping to give them, since we were about to finish earlier. Well, we tackled some of the questions from the public, from the participants, But there's only one group who's typing on the slides and then the others haven't gotten to it. And I can imagine that the time flies and there's only 5 minutes left. I'm wondering if we can give them 5 more minutes.
Sure, that'll be 7:50, but that would keep us on time.
Well, when we come back for the forum share, it'll just be maybe one group sharing or two. It can't be everybody. It can just, you know, and the recording is still going on, just as an
Okay.
FYI.
Okay,
Not
we
in
can.
the, not in the, they will know. I'm sorry, I should pause, right? Okay, because they're almost back, so before I forget. Do you need, so it's the fundraising.
Yeah, popcorn sharing, fundraising pitch,
Yeah,
closing words.
and plus Delta.
Yeah. Welcome back as people are returning. Welcome back. Hope the conversations were fruitful, even if brief.
I think everybody's back. We should probably, oh, so there's only 8.
Oh, nope, here we go. There we go, all at once. Yes, welcome back, everybody. We're glad that you have stayed around. We hope that your conversations were very fruitful. If anyone would like to come off mute, I've asked you all to unmute yourselves. If you want to just come on and share anything that came up for you in your brief, but I know informative packed conversation or reconnections, feel free to do so before we close out.
I guess I'll go. I'll start. I don't shy away from the mic. So we were in room number 1, and I will say we probably didn't follow the instructions. However, we did have good conversation about our own journeys and how important representation is, building community, exchanging information. A lot of the same points we've been talking about throughout this course of this presentation, but just kind of tailoring back to our own personal experiences. And having that resonate with the 3 of us that were in our conversation. But if I missed anything, please let me know. But I think that was kind of the key points.
And I also love the kind of recap that Kelsey was able to give based on hearing our stories and then it resonating with their journey in these spaces of just being resilient and not giving up on yourself, and that visibility that came up again that we were just talking about. And Oprah mentioned so eloquently that, you know, we have to be loud, we have to be present, we have to be unwavering in who we are. And we have to find our community. Like, that is a life or death situation. And so do not give up that. Like, do whatever you can in your spaces to find your people, because they're there. It's just, it's not always as safe. It's not always as easy to just be ourselves. So we do have to sometimes figure out our safe spaces, but do your best to not give up that fight and really, really find your community. Ask people, join listservs, like we have the Northeast, what is that, NEFOC, that listserv. We have the Northeast Queer Farmers listserv. Like those have been my kind of also like spaces where I've been, people are like, oh, I've been seeing your emails and stuff. I'm like, oh, great. You know, we have the NISOG listserv. We just have so many things that are available to us in our community now. And that's, do not leave yourself without finding those people.
Thank you. Anyone else? It's your time to shine. Come on, people. What are we thinking? What are we feeling?
Can I share?
Yes, please.
Well, I just want to say yes to everybody, everything that people have been sharing. I feel like sometimes it might feel difficult at first when we find the challenges, but like we are here. There are queer people everywhere. And yeah, look for people and the community, they'll find you too. And like that's our support system. And yeah, share with each other. I think it's also important, just like sharing the resources, it's also important to share our challenges, so we can like help each other, because we're here and we need each other. And it's beautiful just to like that this is happening, that we're able to come together as Black and queer brown people and like check in with our community and keep this going. So I appreciate everybody that got here and all of what you all doing. This is beautiful. I'm thankful.
Thank you.
Hello, Oprah here. And so one thing that I have been sitting with for a while, as it is Pride Month, there's been different engagements that I've gone to, is that white supremacy doesn't need white people. White supremacy characteristics and white supremacy culture can and does show up in Black and brown spaces, can and does show up in Black and brown queer spaces. And because it's so insidious that we don't even know that what we're doing to each other until somebody doesn't show up anymore, until we look around and everybody looks like us and everybody is from a similar background as us. Everybody's able-bodied, everybody's neurotypical, like all those different things. And then we're just like, oh, well, if those kinds of people don't show up, those other kinds of folks, that's just on them. And so we end up sometimes creating spaces that push those folks to the margins. When I was talking about intersectionality earlier, I've been in Black spaces where they don't care about me being queer. They're like, Black, 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 that's it. Don't talk about that other stuff. And I've been in queer spaces where they've been like, you are queer, we don't know nothing about race, and we're not even gonna try. And so like, then I get pressed to the margins, right? And if it happens to us, that means we can do it to other people. So I would say continue to be cognizant of the things that you don't know about. Like if you don't know about pronouns, seek out that information. If you don't know about different terminology, seek out that information before a trans person is sitting in front of you, before an Indigenous person is sitting in front of you. You can seek out those things to make sure that you're growing just as rapidly and beautifully as our community is growing.
Appreciate the reminder. One more, I'm sure we got space for one more person. Someone has something really burning they want to share, they want to say before we all leave the space and we close out. We can hold space for one more voice.
Nothing really burning for me. I hadn't been wanting to say anything because you can hear my background. And I was super tardy to the party, but I was gracious enough to be in a group 3, where they were able to just share kind of the key takeaways of what this event was about and how beneficial it was and critical and important it is to have spaces like this that can share those resources. And Julia, you can share, what I'm missing as far as some of the key pieces. I know you took notes, but I just thought that it was really it was really important that they were gracious enough to share with me some of the resources, the key takeaways, what resonated with them, the powwow resources, the Native American resources, the pieces about dealing with elders and how to respond to them, and how to work through those processes. So just grateful for such an event that provided the resources and the space available for this. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just in closing, I think that this forum came about because we just decided it was going to happen. and that is the beauty of life, right? You get people together and you make things happen. And one thing that we know as being queer people is that sometimes we've always not been seen by others, so we see each other. And then being able to build that together and move in a space which is important for all of our lives, which is food and land, and be able to do that with community is so empowering. And so I appreciate everyone who took the time out of their Monday to come and sit in this space, because this is what we all needed on this day. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think that as an organization, something that I'm new to, this will be my first full year as a board member at NISOG. It has allowed me to move in a space and position myself in a space that I was kind of on the fringes of, like just gardening and knowing things and, you know, being that person. But now being able to weave myself into a space of community that does look like me, but does incorporate other people who may not be me or how I feel or how I think. And I think that's the beauty of what we as an organization are trying to do moving forward, to make sure that all people, if it's not a table Oprah, that is some contraption that is going to be enough space that everybody can get around and have access to, that everyone helped to build. And if not to build, then they help to do it in a way that will be important for us in our future, in the future after us, for generations and generations. So with that said, my little pitch. We can't ask for much because everybody's coming from a different place. But as an organization, you all know, some of you held nonprofits, some of you are building for yourself. Just the day-to-day life and subsistency is a thing. And we appreciate it if you made a donation through your ticket today. And if you are ever feeling like you want to have a place where you'd like to donate to, so that we can continue to work together as NISOG in the Northeast, making sure that we're centering Black, Brown, Indigenous, and queer voices, please feel free to do so. You can learn about NISOG on our website, nisog.org. Yes, you can only do what you can do, but it's not like I'd be remiss without not asking, right? So I'm gonna ask whenever I get an opportunity to. Yes, Christina, is there anything you want to share in before we move on and say our goodbyes?
I just dropped the link to NISOG's new purpose, mission, and vision. I dropped it on the chat because it's important. NISOG is a 30-plus-year-old organization, and there has been a big pivot and a big change. And I also would like to share the slide with the contacts for each one of the speakers, if that's okay.
Yes.
And so if you need to, because it's easier to share the slide than to write one by one. So feel free.
So the slide will be there if you want to get more information. Also, plus deltas. So of course, we want feedback. Always wanting to know how we can build, expand, and make events like this even more spacious and even more what we need as a community. So please feel free to stay behind and leave plus deltas. I think Christina is going to put forth a form. We'll also send that out through a follow-up email. Just thank you for your attendance and participation. And as always, be the change you want to see in the world. And everyone have a great evening, great productive Tuesday. Tomorrow, enjoy this heat and get some rest. Be kind to yourselves.
Just drop the plus delta. You will receive it via email as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Much love to everyone.
Christina, you want to stay and talk really quickly?
I'll stop the recording.